My name is Elizabet. I'm from Iceland. And one thing I noticed about you is that you give off a really calming presence.
Aww. My name is Bernadette Bell, Miss Universe Singapore. And one thing about you is your exuberance. Like your cheeks were constantly up. What is one trend you wish could be banished from society?
Oh, I wish cancel culture could be canceled in general. Like be banned because I think it's really important to make sure that you have the proper information first. And I feel often when it comes to seeing people getting canceled online, people have not properly seen both perspectives. It's often viewed as something as black and white. And I think it's really important that we see, like, give a second chance when there is a chance for it. And I don't feel like we should be so quick to dismiss people for mistakes. Like, definitely some of them are really severe, and I do support, like, not supporting that kind of behavior. But I think it's just so important that we try to, not just believe the first word we hear it, but actually dive deeper into what is happening behind the scenes. So I think cancel culture can be really toxic at times, and it's important to not fall a victim to participating too much in it.
I don't know, it's kind of like, it's a tricky situation, right?
Yeah, because like sometimes it's really understandable why people are angry.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's just been it's so common these days that a person makes the tiniest mistake or something that the other person does not agree with, then that person gets canceled. And I just don't think it's right to do that, because I cannot imagine what it feels like to be in a position where people are just like, no, you're canceled, you're not valid anymore, we don't care about you. I think it's really dehumanizing, and it must hurt.
Yeah, and it kind of sets people up to always want to be perfect. Like it's already hard enough as it is to try and be this public figure and to put yourself out there, but then have at the back of your head this reality of being shunned out by the people that once loved, quote unquote, loved or supported you because you've said something amiss. Or maybe not even something amiss, just stood up for something that they did not stand for. You know, recently this is kind of happening to Amanda,
I
Miss
noticed
Universe Thailand.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
I find it really heartbreaking when a person like stands up for what they believe is right, then she gets, receives criticism for that, because especially when it comes to human rights, and it's like if we would go to gay pride and people would get angry that we're supporting love for all. And it's just, I don't think it's right, because of course we all have different opinions, but it's so important to respect each other's opinions.
Actually, it also happened to Miss Philippines recently.
Really? I did not
Rubia.
notice that.
Basically, the president, President Duterte, said something about how there's no room for women in politics. Obviously, Rubia said something that was contrary to what he said, because I mean that's kind of what Miss Universe is all about, is creating this platform in order to be vocal about real issues, social, political, even just to have an opinion and speak their ground on it. And so when she went against it, a lot of pro Duterte's got really angry. And I think the biggest criticism for her right now would be her fashion choice or the way that she's being styled. And a lot of them were saying, like, before you say anything about politics, why don't you go fix your clothes first?
No, that's not valid.
Yeah,
No.
kind of like go focus on your clothes and get that right before you come out and like speak about all these other things.
No. Why are they connected it to the outward appearance for her political opinion? Because that has nothing to do with each other.
Because they're pageant fans as well. And so
Yeah, but
obviously they
that's
want.
also that's also like why, because in pageantry, what I find so amazing now is that we're trying to make it more about, the where it's about who you are as a person and what you stand for, and that is what Miss Universe is about. I don't agree with that. I hate when people go and especially judge your appearance when it comes to that stuff, because it has nothing to do with you as a person. What courage means to me is just who Elizabeth is. And that is because that's something I had to build up, and that's something that I sometimes struggle a lot with, because it's really difficult to make big decisions in your life, especially when they are going to be life changing. Sometimes we have made up scenarios in our head on what it's supposed to be like, and we have expectations and we want it to go that way, but then there's always that fear that it's not actually going to happen. And that's often the case. Like, not everything goes as planned. But I think it's so important to be courageous and take that step and be ready for it to not necessarily go the other way. Because if you don't put in the courage during that moment, then you will never know whether you would have succeeded or not. Just with travel in general, like when I was 17 years old, I first went to abroad alone, and I went to Japan, and yeah. And I went alone there, and I lived with a host family. I was offered to go to Japan and stay there for a month in a language school for free. But that meant that I would have to take a break from my school here in Iceland. And that's something that really scared me, because I wasn't sure how I felt about being behind when it came to education. But then it's just so important to remember that we all do things at a different pace. And there isn't a deadline for these kind of things. Like, we feel like there is a deadline because we have the people our own, like our age, and we see where they are, and we feel like we have to be there too. And it's so scary to decide to go a different way. So that's why I picked the word courage. I feel like that's what brings me to other places and gets me where I want to be. And I just think it's really important to have it, because otherwise you never really do what you want to do, if you're always stuck in fear and don't want to go out there. My problem when I was a kid was that I was really blunt. I speak bluntly, and I don't sugarcoat things. And people would sometimes, feel hurt, because it's understandable that when somebody says something just straight out to you, you kind of get defensive and it hurts. And if that, or when that happened, I always took it to me, because we are not in the position to say whether their feelings are valid enough or not. It's really important that when somebody says that you have hurt their feelings or something like that, that we actually take it in and, go back and see like what we did in that situation and whether we actually agree with it or not. So I try to be really open when it comes to hearing what other people have to say about me, and actually try to work it through if I notice myself that it's not right.
I mean, I kind of relate to you in the sense that I am also very blunt. And like I said earlier, if there was something that was amiss, I would be quite transparent about my feelings towards it. But do you think that by adjusting the way that you are, like, I wouldn't say the way that you are, but like trying to take in that feedback and then trying to course correct yourself, do you think that you kind of fallen off of yourself a little bit, or like the true person of who you are?
I will never stop being honest. And I think it's really important to view each and every situation, whether what you have to say actually matters there. It's like, the thing, like whether like telling people if they have a smudge on their cheek or something, like if it cannot be fixed in 3 seconds, then don't say it. And that's, of course, when it comes, like, it does not relate to when you're having a discussion with people. But I think it's really important that you actually notice what state that person is that you're talking to, because sometimes they don't need your criticism or your opinion, because sometimes they're just not asking for it. And I think
Yeah.
it's really important to just know to step back and notice, like, I don't need to bring any input into this conversation because it's not necessary. It's not going to change much, and they don't want it. And I think it's really important to know that, like, your opinion might not be the right opinion. So I think we
That's
just
so
have to take it.
powerful.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we know that, like, at least realize that we might be in the wrong sometimes. It's so difficult to say, like, oh, I was wrong in this situation. It's really difficult because that is like the pride of humans being like, no, I was right here. But I
Yeah.
just think it's a good quality to learn that, because that's a behavior we have to learn.